One time, Bart was convinced I'd stole his hat and coat. And so he told me, he goes, Johnny, I'm telling you, he played that pro football. He was trained by that shooter boy up in Minnesota, but I'm going to find me a patch of green grass and I'm going to teach you a lesson, you greenhorn asshole. And I said, Bart, I don't have your hat and coat. I said, I don't. And so Bart's convinced I've stolen. Murdoch walks in wearing Bart's hat and coat.
Oh, God.
Wearing it. Bart turns to Murdoch and he goes, Dickie, I'm going to tell you, one of these guys stole my hat and coat. And when they find out who it is, I'm going to teach them a lesson. I'm going to whoop somebody's dadgum butt. Bart, he's wearing it. He's actually, we're all sitting there going, this is a rib. Dickie's wearing it. Bart was still threatening me for it was insane. Bart was just the most wonderful human being. I had so much fun with Bart. Everybody loved Bart. He was just a real pleasant individual. And people ask me where I learned to cut a promo. Whether I'm any good or not, I don't know, but Bart was. I used to listen to Bart cut promos every single night. You know, we had to do TV because back then you had to do promos for every single venue. So, all right, you got the Von Erich boys and Will Rogers. It's a cage match. Give us 2 minutes, go. And Bart would cut this hell of a promo. Then you say, okay, you got Murdoch and Rhodes, or you got Murdoch and Killer and Waxahachie. You got a minute and a half, go. And Bart would cut this promo. But you got to do like 15 or 20 of these every single night after TV. I just sit there and watch Bart. I'm going, every promo was different. Every promo was entertaining. And it's kind of like Cornette, how you'd go off on this rant, screaming rant that somehow made perfect sense and tied back in at the end, and you're going, this guy's a freaking genius. This is really entertaining. So, yeah, so I hate that Bart had cancer for a long time. He fought like crazy. He's a tough guy, but one of the best human beings I've ever met. I'm certainly lucky that he was one of my friends, and also very lucky that I ended up in Texas with Bart, because he certainly helped me out tremendously in so many things.
If you actually go look up your career on cagematch.net, and you click on matches and you go and you see what is the oldest match that they have on record for you, it's John Hawk defeats Black Bart at a global television taping at the Dallas Sportatorium on October 9th, 1992. That's pretty crazy to think that, because I don't know that I would have guessed that you and he were even friends before we ever talked about him. And the idea that the oldest match that they can find online for you is you and Black Bart. How cool is that?
Just awesome. I loved Bart, and Bart was so entertaining. I'm telling you, every dressing room needs a Black Bart. He was fun. He ribbed people. He didn't care if he got ribbed. Bart just wanted to be entertained. He didn't care if he was the butt of ribs. He just wanted people to have fun. I was out there working with him, and it was right after that match, and I'm out there. I think Akbar was either his manager or my manager, one of the two. And I roll out, and back in the day, we didn't get smartened up to nothing. Brad Reigans was a terrific trainer. I love Brad. But they didn't smarten you up to Carney. They didn't smarten you up to finishes and vernacular and anything. They just kind of taught you everything about wrestling, but not the inner workings. So I'm out there with Bart, and his potato receipt was he'd club you on the head with this part of his fist, and he'd hit you like this. And I mean, when he clubbed you, it felt like it just broke every vertebra in your neck. He'd hit you so hard when he's mad at you. And so I've done something wrong. He clubbed me, and I thought, I've done something wrong, but I don't know what I've done wrong. I'm so green, and people didn't smarten you up back then. You had to figure it out on your own. And so I thought, I've done something wrong. I have no idea what it is. So I punch him back, and then he clubs me again. He goes, "That's a receipt, you greenhorn." And I thought, I don't know what a receipt is. So I hit him again. Now he hits me again. He goes, "It's a receipt." And he hits me, and he's almost knocking me out. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do? So I roll out of the ring. There's Akbar right there. And this is one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. I said, "Ak, what's a receipt?" And Ak says, "You greenhorn idiot." He goes, "A receipt means you're not hitting him hard enough. He wants you to receipt him as hard as he's hitting you. So when he says receipt, you got to pop him." I go, "Well, I can't hit him any harder." So I went back in there, and that happened the rest of the night. Bart was so mad. He came to the back. He threw his branding iron down. He threw his bag down. He wanted to fight me. And I'm like, "Bart, I had no idea what I've done wrong." And then finally Bart found out that Akbar was the one that told me what a receipt was.
Well, rest in peace, Mr. Black Bart. I just can't believe the connective tissue that you had with him. And to think about y'all's age difference. I just looked that up too. I guess he's like 18 years older than you. And
Yeah.
so, when you're really learning from somebody in the business, somebody who's 18 years your senior, and that's a great place to start, isn't it?
It really is. And Bart was one of those guys. Bart trained a lot of people. And I mean, trained a lot of people in the ring. So like Dusty, he told the story about Dusty. He wanted him to work with Dustin, but Bart did that with a lot of people. Bart got a lot of people like me and Bobby Duncombe Jr. and got them in the ring. And, he is the old school thing. He wouldn't tell you anything. He'd just get in the ring with you and he'd try to explain things to you as you're working. I remember one time he had me in the corner and he goes, fire back one time. So I fired back once and the crowd popped and I hit him like 6 or 7 more times in a row. Cause I'm thinking, oh man, I'm getting over. And he told me after, he goes, you dumbass. One time. He goes, just listen to me. He goes, it would have worked. And he explained to me why what I did was wrong. But that's how you learn. And that's how you learned back then, was guys like Bart being able to teach you. And I've had, I don't know how many matches. We were tag team partners. We worked against Bart and Johnny Mantell. I worked against Bart by himself. I had so many matches with him. And a lot of it was Akbar out there going, hey, we think this kid might do something. Please help him. And so Bart took me under his wing on purpose. But that's what guys like Bart did back then. You always had to have a guy like Bart who could train you guys on the job. And that's what Bart did.
Well, shout out to Bart and his entire family. I know that making a living in the wrestling business is not only going to take a toll on him, but the entire family. And I hope that he's no longer in pain and he's at peace. And
hey, Conrad, let me tell you one quick thing. Just one quick thing about Bart. I want to give a shout out to all the fans out there that have done stuff for Bart, because this is important to me, and it's important to those of us that love Bart. When Bart had the cancer problems, he had like a $600 bill every couple weeks, even though he had insurance, and so a lot of us guys were helping Bart. And I said, Bart, why don't you set up a GoFundMe? And I wasn't interested in setting up the GoFundMe for money because we were, helping Bart. So the money was going to be taken care of. But I wanted Bart to see the fans reach out to help him, because Bart was professional wrestling 100%. Everything in his life was about professional wrestling. And he was real hesitant. I said, Bart, what's your hesitation? And he said, well, Johnny, he said, I set up a GoFundMe a few years ago and nobody gave anything. And I said, well, Bart, things have changed. When you set it up, you probably didn't have the ability to promote it, and people were different back then. I said, let's set it up again, okay? And I said, let's see what happens. So I had arranged with some other guys, James Beard and several other guys, we were going to make sure he had funding from the GoFundMe. We were going to, if we had to put it under pseudonyms and put it in there, we were going to, make Bart feel good. We didn't have to. Fans reached out in droves. I mean, people were giving $5, $50, $100 to help Bart with his cancer treatments. Bart called me in tears. I mean, it was it was so cool to hear Bart say, I thought the fans had all forgotten old Black Bart. And he said, I just went through it again. He said, I've been through it several times a day and looked at all the names. And he said, it's so cool that people reached out to and helped me. And that meant so much to Bart. So sometimes when you have these GoFundMe pages, it's not necessarily about the money. A lot of times it is, but sometimes it's just about letting people know you care. And whether that's $5 or $10, Bart looked through every single one of those, and he did it many times. And that meant the world to Bart, that fans had not forgotten him. I thought that was really cool.
It's super cool. And we won't forget Bart. And maybe if you didn't grow up watching Black Bart, I just want to remind you that a lot of your favorites drew a lot of inspiration, not just JBL here today, but Dustin Rhodes tweeted out last night, Black Bart taught me a ton in my younger years, loved him to death. He will be missed. Hashtag RIP. You never know, man, the connective tissue and the way we're all sort of connected here together. And you bring up a great point about GoFundMe. Sometimes, especially if you've been a performer like this under the bright lights for years and years and years, I'm sure that did mean a lot. And I'm glad that you got to share that moment and you were able to share it with us. We appreciate your candor and and hope that his family finds peace and contentment, and hopefully he's no longer in pain, and he's watching the matches upstairs now from the skybox.
That's right. He can go fight with the Von Erichs again. Oh my God, they were like dogs and cats backstage, much less in the ring. Oh my God, he waffled. I think Kevin one time with his branding iron, and Fritz called me, "What are you doing?" And Bart, typical Bart, "Well, he won't sell, so I had to make him."
Can you imagine? He won't sell. I had to make him.
Yeah.